top 10 my, of my favorite top 100 board games. I am Informal Geek, and we're going to get into it. And just before I show you the table with all the games on it, just to support spoilers for anybody or anyone who might be clicking in at the wrong time, I got you covered. So the description will have links to both the playlist as well as a way to jump straight into the number 100, just in case you want to start over without being spoiled. As well as a reminder to anyone who's watching this video, please, if you're going to leave comments, try not to mention the game titles. Instead, reference the number. So I'm like, hey, I thought all about your number 7, or your number 4 is amazing to me, whatever. That is going to make it simpler for anyone who's jumping in right now to just enjoy this video, and as well as enjoy the game that I've built into it. So with that said, that's the end of the spoiler warning. We're going to get into it right now. All right, you can see everything on the table here. Everything that we've uncovered so far, all the games we've talked about. Now it's time to have some fun. So what we're going to do differently this time around is, instead of showing you a certain number of teasers and reveals in order to see if you can guess what the game is based off of the component, I'm going to do them one at a time. So starting with my number 10, that uses this component. Can you guess the game? Can you guess the game? My number 10 is Horizons. Horizons from Daily Magic Game, who's really known for games like the Valeria Kingdom series and so on. But Horizons is one of my favorite 4X style games. This one does it in a pretty clean and simple way. Actually, the components are a little bit different than what you're seeing here, but not by much. There are these stars or suns, if you want, that are placed out in the center of the game area. And over the course of the game, players are going to be adding from a bag. They're going to be pulling a new planet, and it's double-sided. It's totally random, but you do have a little bit of choice. It's going to be 2 out of the possible 6 planets that are available, and you're going to put it in a solar or in a system. Okay. Now, why would you want to do that? Why does any of that matter? Because at the end of the game, we're going to be looking at majorities. So this particular planet has, I think all of them have 3 spots for player buildings. But based on the type of buildings that you build, they're going to be worth different points at the end of the game. The game immediately ends. I believe it's immediate. Once one player's colonies are all out. But there are ore collectors and energy collectors, which are the 2 major resources. And so that's what you're trying to do, is get planets put into systems and then put your buildings onto them, so that you have overall influence of majority of the entire system, as well as individually for each planet. The way that you do that is through cards. So you're always, and everything on your player board is already out here. So you're going to choose any 2 actions, mix and match them, and do them in any order. You can harvest, explore, adapt, build, and conspire. So basically, you have cards that match. There's a deck of cards that matches each of the types of actions that you can take. So in addition to taking the action here, you can play a card from your hand that matches that symbol to do a boosted version of that. This game is really clever with the decks of cards here. So for example, let's say you take an explore action that says draw and play a planet, gain a victory point, which can also be used to pay as a resource. So you're going to draw a card from any of the stacks that you want from that's what's showing, revealing a new card with different abilities and such. And then you're going to, like, that action of gaining a card also brings out and advances the game towards its conclusion. You can activate all different types of things. You can build one of the types of buildings that are out there, or you can draw cards and take different types of actions. So this does have a very abstracted 4X appeal to it, but it still very much plays in that same vein. It doesn't have a whole bunch of components. It's not overwhelmingly crazy, but it does have all that 4X strategy. It is competitive. You're trying to race and rush and get resources and interact with each of the players. I do have the expansion that does include the exterminate side of things. It's still not very heavy, but I think it does add what you need to round out this game experience. So I believe this game is pretty much out of print, but if you are able to find it, and if you can find its expansion, I would say that its expansion is a must-have to add that that fourth X of exterminate into the equation. But yeah, you're gonna exploit and expand like crazy though, and it's really fun. And surprisingly, I think you can get not once you have a game under your belt, you can easily knock this out in about an hour. So that's Horizons, my number 10. Love this game. All right, let's take a look and see if you can guess what my number 9 is. This is that token. Recognize it? Hopefully you do. It's pretty popular. Got a lot of buzz last couple of years, and that is Ark Nova. This is the economic zoo builder sim. Actually, maybe not a sim, but it's a zoo builder. This uses the really clever card system that I was mentioning about earlier when I was talking about Civilization New Dawn, where the strength of the card depends on whatever slot it's in, and then once you use it, it goes back to a number 1, like the worst one. So it's like a charging element almost to these cards. You can upgrade these to take better actions, but ultimately you're trying to build a zoo. When the first time you play, it's recommended everyone uses the same map, but you can quickly jump into having unique maps and try to build the best zoo with the layout that you get. There's all different types of actions that you can take that are most. I mean, I have this expansion now, but I've only played it with the expansion once. The expansion does give you some asymmetry between players, because normally everyone has the same exact cards with the same powers. So I do like the expansion so far, but I don't have enough to say if this is going to boost the game up high or not. But even without that, it's still a really, really, really fun game. It's my number 9 at this point, right? So what makes this game the most interesting for me is not only are the cards fun to look at, but this has what I would consider like the terraforming Mars aspect of trying to manage a really tight economy of income with matching up tags. Like, for example, if you want to build this Jaguar, you need to have at least one of these icons out there already, even though it gives you one. So you kind of have to build towards certain animals, especially the big, powerful ones, and that gives you a theme to go after. And I think that is something that I like to do. Now, this game does have an insanely amount of cards, so you never really are going to. You're going to have a strategy that gives you a vision, but really it's like doing well in this game is going to come down to how well you adapt to what you get and what's available. The expansion does add some mitigation techniques into the game, which I do appreciate, but I've only got one game under my belt, so I can't recommend it just yet. But check out a review on that by someone else, because I'm not covering it. But you're trying to build the best zoo. You're trying to be the first to complete certain objectives. You're constantly fighting over, these things are tight. These are first come, first serve, and you only get one of these to start with. One of these, I forget the name of the assistants or so that you put out. So where are you going to go? You're going to build an alliance with a different nation, and that gives you access to building those cards. You're going to invest into some early science or abilities or ways of generating or having a bigger hand size. You're going to invest in putting a cube down in one of these tracks, assuming you meet the criteria. Like, it's one person can go there. Like, it can get pretty tight pretty quickly. So yeah, that's the game. I think it's a lot of fun. It's way more complex than I'm doing to touch this game and explain it. Oh, I didn't even mention the crux of this game is you've got these 2 tracks that you're managing, and the conservation and the attraction. So the attraction is really, really, really incremental. You're getting tickets to come see you, and then the overall conservation is how well you're doing in the grand scheme of what you're doing with your animals. And once those 2 tracks meet, right, and eventually cross and go farther, you're looking at the gap between those 2 tracks. So if this one goes all the way around here and passes this red marker and ends here, then I'm looking at what the difference is between this red and counting that as my points. And whoever has the highest spread in between those 2 once they cross is the winner. And yeah, I think that it's not used in a lot of games, but every game that it is used, I tend to like. And I don't have Rajas of the Ganyas on my list right now, but that would be another one. I think if I played that more, it would definitely bump up, because I do like dice placement, as you've noticed. But yeah, Ark Nova is a really excellent game. It's my number 8. I'm sorry, my number 9. Moving on to my number 8, though, is a game that uses this token. I'm be surprised if you don't guess this one because it has been out for a little while and it has had a lot of buzz. It's very, very popular by a lot of gamers, and that is viticulture. I'm showing you the essential because this is what you can buy right now, and it's all you need. It's essential. Now, I go back and forth between this and the Tuscany board. Although I like elements of the Tuscany board, I don't like playing with it all the time. I think that this game is really fun. I also have, because I play this game so many times, we do have a house rule that we use that I think is pretty common. I found it on Board Game Geek in one of the forums, I think, or one of the files, where whenever you draw cards, you draw two and keep one. Um, that just kind of, like, I guess that's game group dependent. Like if you are playing with people who generally don't like randomness or maybe like swings of luck, then that would be helpful to kind of have a more controllable experience. And ultimately, you're going to do whatever you need to do to have a good time with your friends. So that's one way to look at it. I do appreciate that variant exists, but I'm okay with, you know, losing due to bad draws because I did the best I could with what I got. I think that's okay. There's no instant, I don't think this game would be as popular today if that were such a major problem. So I'm spending way more time talking about it than I think the actual game. This is a worker placement game. It's split up into two phases. You've got summertime and wintertime for the base game here. You've got this workup track, which is based off of turn order. You call dibs on what bonus you want to get, and whatever bonus you get determines what the actual round order will be for that round. So if you go late, you get some pretty good stuff, but you're also going late. So other players are going to be blocking out these spaces before you. There's a nice moment where you have to decide to pass with whatever workers you have left over, because anyone that you put out in the summer is locked in until the end of the round. So whoever you have left is what you get to use in the winter. And the actions are very different. Like this is mostly going to be around dealing with summer visitors and planting grapes. Over here, you're going to be harvesting them, turning them into wine, and then selling them. Like those three big actions are wrapped up into a single tightly contested space of the board. What I'm not showing you here in the Tuscany board that I do like a lot is the board in which splits this up into 4 seasons. That is my favorite element of the Tuscany board, but there are some other pieces in there for you to explore. But if you don't get any of that and you only get this essential edition for viticulture, you're still having a great time. This is such a fun, accessible game to a lot of people. And I think what does it a lot of benefits is that everyone can understand and respect the process of creating wine. It makes sense. It's logical. And so, yeah, there's lots of nice, successful feelings when you're upgrading and putting buildings on your board out and getting a good amount of bonuses. So viticulture is an awesome game. I still love it to this day. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I learned this from one of my first gaming groups we were playing with. Kudos to you guys, you know who you are. Where whenever we sell grapes as wine, we would refer to that as boxed wine. And the Winter Soldier was popular, so we call that one worker the Winter Soldier. So when we still do that to the day, I think it's fun to have a little bit of meta in there. Anyways, that's viticulture, my number 8. Hope you enjoy it too. Let's take a look at my number 7. Do you recognize... Ooh, I don't want to quit. But do you recognize this token? This piece? Rum. I hope you do, because it's an awesome game. It's distilled. It's a spirited strategy game. It's basically... It's a different... Actually, I didn't do it on purpose, but I did not realize I put 2 processing style games back to back. Holy smokes. I can't believe I just did that. So going from building and crafting and building wine, we're doing spirits instead, whiskeys, rums, and all sorts of stuff. But the gameplay is so different. This is not a worker placement game. Here is a push your luck style of game with elements of resource management and stuff like that. So on your turn, it's a market phase. Everyone goes around turn order doing something. You're going to be getting some basic ingredients. You're going to get special items, premium ingredients, or you're going to you're going to be building upgrades. So it's like upgrades to your warehouse or hiring assistants that let you do better stuff. This does not resemble like a really true to heart spirit of what it takes to make spirits, but I think it does a good idea to put you in the theme because you're going to be required to have at least one element of yeast, I believe, and one element of water, which turns into alcohol cards that kind of mucks up or just adds variability into the deck that you have. And then you add in all of your ingredients, your plants and your grains and so on. And you're going to shuffle this little deck up and take the top card and the bottom card out of the deck, and whatever you have left is the recipe for your drink. So you're going to look at your chart over here and decide if you made something great like rum or whiskey, or you ended up just making some more moonshine instead. So they all have benefits and costs. You do not have access to everything over here. You do have to spend money to to learn the recipe. But once you've learned it, then you can craft it, assuming you have the right recipes. The right ingredients. But the push your luck element is really fun, and there are plenty of ways of mitigating it. So don't think it's like a giant random fest. It's not. This game is one of those games that teeters on overproduced, which I think helps to get it played. Man, but it's really figuring out how to get the right ingredients and specialize, and then try to get, like, you can play super conservative and almost guarantee that you're always going to be able to get what you need. But I don't know if you're going to do very well. So there is a need for that push your luck to exist. Even though there are plenty of ways of trading in cards, basic cards, to get you whatever you might need, like the things that you might be missing. So there's a lot of mitigation. This is a solo variant that's being shown right now. But check it out. This is such a really fun game. Distilled, my number 7. I can't believe I put so close to viticulture. It's funny. All right, here we go. Number 6. Come on. Can you figure out what my number 6 is based off of this token? Well, it's the other animal game that I happen to like a lot, and it's Life of the Amazonia. Now, I do want to preface that although this is higher on my list, I don't think it's a really good design, but it can be definitely clunky to learn. So in this game, you're building your own jungle. So this is not like Ark Nova where you're building your own zoo, but it is kind of similar that you're building something. But game to game, sorry, my dogs are just like up and about. They must know it's like lunchtime. Game to game, you're going to choose a configuration of these. There's a couple of, I think there's 2 sides to these. There's 2 cards, which gives you 4 sides to use. And some are easier and some are harder than others, and that is what varies from game to game, but also can swing the complexities from these games. And a lot of these are different types of patterns. So like this macaw version, I don't exactly know what it is, but it looks like it wants to be, next to trees. So however many trees it's next to is a certain number of points that you can get. So player count dictates how many of these animals are available from game to game too. So there's a little bit of that, try to build a strategy to build a jungle that meets what you can, so you can get the most of those animals in your jungle. But I think what makes this game so fun is it's similar to Orleans, maybe not so much Orleans, but similar to like Quacks of Quedlinburg in a way, where you do have a bag that you're pulling these tokens from, and that determines what you can do. So if you pull a couple of leaves, then you can go up the waterfall track to either put out some new trees or to grow your jungle out by pulling more of by getting a tile out here from the market. You can get water tokens, which will let you put the water flowers out into the river spaces, or you can increase your backpack. And that right there, the backpack, I think is the cleverest thing for a game like this. I think every game in the future should have something like this in it. What the backpack does is whenever you draw chips and you have the 5 chips that you have for the round, right? Assuming you don't have techniques to get you some additional chips. Sometimes you're just going to get a bad draw. Well, what the backpack does by default, its value is 1. It says that no matter what you draw, you can keep one chip until your next round. So you might keep your best one, or you might keep something you're just not using right now. Well, if you can upgrade this to eventually have 4, I believe it's 4 water. You can have 3. So you draw 5, right? And you might draw exactly what you don't draw exactly enough. So for example, to build a toucan, it looks like you need 5 fruit and 2 water. So you drew all the fruit but no water. No worries, you can keep 3 tokens up there. So maybe you keep all the whatever gave you all the fruit and a little bit of water until your next turn. When your next turn comes by, you're drawing another 5 tiles. You're gonna have 8 tiles to work, or 8 chips to work with that turn. So although it does suck to be like, well, I didn't do much on this turn, boy, are you ramping up to have a super turn. And it does that all the time. So there's a lot of things to sort of grok here. It's you're pulling gold chips to buy better chips, very much like Quedlinburg and other style games. You've got some mitigation for when you get the bad draws in there, kind of like Orleans, where you can keep workers behind and you still have the capacity to draw more. You've got optional cards you can go after for boosts in endgame scoring or instant use cards. You've got all these fun fully screen printed animals to put into your jungles. This is a presentation game and it's so fun. I do have the Marine Worlds expansion, not the Marine World, that's the Ark Nova expansion, whatever. I have the expansion for this, which includes another variant of cards for each of the animals. And it does include a family variant, which are simpler cards to use. Unfortunately, they did bundle that into an expansion, which kind of shame on them in a way, because that family variant is what makes this accessible to a couple of my older kids who are in that like 9 to 12-year-old range. And because of that, that's why we're playing the game as much as we are. I really wish that was not an expansion, but if you've got an age group of people that you want to play that's not super complex gamers, like that's the way to go. But if you are, into more heavier, thinkier games, you can figure out how to deal with the terminology and groupings and stuff. This can then swing up the scale of complexity, and I like that. I like the spectrum there a lot, which is I think why this game is so high on the list, because I can have so much fun playing it in different ways. And the solo variant is pretty good actually. So that's out there for you. Unfortunately, I have to add one more ding to it. Component quality is not fantastic for this game. It's really easy to bend some of the cardboard and stuff. I did put a little bit of super glue to help hold these things together. And most importantly, I bought coin capsules. They sell upgraded chips for these. I don't like them. They still stick to each other because of the sticker that they're using does have some static charge when you put it into the bag. I don't know. They seem to still stick to each other. It's not terrible, but it's a problem that's annoying if you were to drop another $35 for an already expensive game. So I dropped I think another $12 to buy all the coin capsules that I needed, and it just like sleeving can take time. It's an investment, but those coin capsules, they look good. They fit. Everything totally fits in the trays, and it's easier to pull. So I would recommend that too. It's just no going in. It's a super cool game. It is a little overpriced, especially for the quality that you get. So that's a barrier, but I love that game so much. All right, we're going to go into number 5 territory now. There we go. My number 5 game, my favorite top 5 game is using, I almost said it, it uses this this symbol, I should say. Not always this token, because it's for a specific thing, but yeah, it uses that logo there. It's Cosmic Encounter. This game is almost as old as I am. It's been around forever. It has definitely stood the test of time because, you know what? People like to be silly with people. And they like to play a game that is also relying on some strategy. There is really not much else like this out there either, which I think helps. Cosmic Encounter is such a flexible game, but the goal of the game is that you play an alien faction, and you've got planets in your home system, and you've got ships on all of them. You're trying to get ships on any 5 other colonies, or have colonies on 5 different planets, I should say. So if I were the yellow player, I've got 1 here, I've got 1 here, I have 1 here, and I have 1 here. I have 4 points. I'm 1 point away from winning, right? So how do you do that? So there is you're gonna draw a card, and it tells you who you encounter. So you don't get to choose; it is random, and it does help with the themes of the game. You're gonna have some crazy alien power that breaks the rules in some way. It's crazy to think that there's over 150, probably closer to 200 different aliens out there now throughout all the expansions. But even in the base game box, I think there's 80 or so. There's a lot of aliens, and they all do different things. They're all really well written on their cards. You don't have to look up the rule books for many things. And you interact with them. You have an encounter. You say, all right, I've got this warp gate. I'm bringing in X amount of ships from any of my locations. And then the defense is, going to have a chance. Well, both teams are going to have a chance to call in for allies. Like, hey, who wants to piggyback on this attack over here? Hey, who wants to come in, try and defend with me? And then both of the main people are going to play 1 card face down from their hand. It has to be an encounter card, but you can be... Encounters vary between morphs and negotiates and attacks. And you can have a little table talk here. Like, hey, let's negotiate. I have a negotiate card. Do you have a negotiate card? Yeah, sure. And maybe you do. And you flip them over. And if they happen to both be negotiates, you have 1 minute to strike a deal. And usually early game, it's let's just trade planet for planet. I'll let you put a ship on my planet. You let me put one on yours. Sometimes it'll be, you know what? I'm not going to let you do that. But if you let me put one of my ships on one of your planets, because clearly you're in the lead and I'm not, I'll trade you a couple of cards. Sometimes you can negotiate just to purposefully not come to a deal. And if you don't strike a deal in a minute, all of the ships, the main character ships, are lost to the warp. So you can kind of hose someone in that way too. So if you have a group that can mess around with each other and have a little bit of fun interactive wise, this game is so good. It's a memory generator. Let's put it that way. Oh man, it's crazy. And and there's ways of fighting against each other. Like this person plays an 8, this person plays a 12. You count up your ships. Who has the majority, they win. Oh, actually, but I'm the alien that says losers win, or I'm the alien that says before you flip those over, I'm gonna randomly choose what I think my card will be. Like there's so many spin-offs of this stuff. It's such a silly game. But that's Cosmic Encounter, my number 5. I love this game. I'll probably always love this game. My kids, a couple of my older kids are at that age where we're getting ready to play. We just haven't had the right time for me to introduce it to them yet. But we're in the summer now, so I guarantee you this summer we're playing Cosmic Encounter at least a couple of times. We'll probably bring some of their friends in too. It's going to be nuts. Works great with teenagers. It's a great family style game because again, it does have some complexities to learn, but I think I played this game with brand new gamers before, and I did have to piggyback them and help them out because there's a lot of you do need to know how the game plays to do well, and questions can kind of ruin that for you. But if you're willing to play that role as support for someone, newcomers can equally do well in this game. And it's a fantastic negotiation style game with fun powers. All right, we're number 4 now. Let's check it out. Number 4, can you figure out what the game is based off of that component or even just that icon? Hopefully you do. I imagine you do because it is another very, very, very popular game. And despite having it tied to an IP, it is still a very good game. And that is Dune Imperium. I love this game. There's a lot to look at here, but I promise you it's really not that complicated compared to some of the other games I've already shown you in this list and even previous lists. This game tries to marry worker placement and deck building, but this is way more of a worker placement game than it is a deck building game, in my opinion. And the reason for that is because when you play a card, the tags on the left here determine what action spaces you can send workers to. If I had performed Worm Riders, then I can only go to a blue space or a triangle space. or the blue circle space, and that's these spaces here. These are the triangles, and these are the blue circles, or a couple triangles up here too. That's it. Like, I play this card, so I have access to these locations. I put an agent out, and I do the thing that's there. So it's worker placement in the same vein as like Lords of Waterdeep almost. This does feel, it does have some similarities to Lords of Waterdeep because there are intrigue cards that you can play and keep secret. But for the most part, you're going to get resources. The resources are very limited. There's only 2 types mainly. I guess there's 3 types, but mainly you're dealing with Spice and Solari, the orange and the white. But then some of these other cards, like Seek Allies, lets you go and visit the other factions in the game. Not player factions, but just other races in the game. So like this card will let me interact with only these spaces over here, which will let me, get more troops and put them into battle, or discard a card to draw cards, or get more intrigue cards, or get more of these red cards, which it's like a future card where if you draw that card, you have access to any space basically on the board, but you have to get rid of it. Like, you can't keep that card. So it's an investment piece. And the reason you would interact with these spaces, is because, oh wait, it's also a race game. You're trying to be you're trying to have the most points, but the end of the game is triggered as soon as someone hits 10 points. And when you are interacting with these other races, as soon as you go up the track twice, just twice, you get a victory point. And then if you can interact with them again 2 more times, and you're the first person to sort of cross into this orange threshold, then you get this faction chip showing that your alliance is good with them. And that's also worth a victory point. But this victory point can get stolen. But if you're the first player to actually max out the track, you've locked it in. You got that victory point here. So every one of these tracks has the potential of 10 points, or 2, 4, 6, 8 points. No one's ever going to get 8 points from the track, but it's possible. But you're going to get the majority of your points here, and then the majority of your points through combat. So every round finishes, there's going to be a combat card displayed that tells you, what are the rewards for first, second, and third. In this particular battle, first place gets 2 points and a control marker. Second place gets a card and 3 spice, and so on. And combat is also really fun in this game because you have troops in your garrison, but they can only enter the combat when you go to a place that has these little X's on them. So, the basic cards let me go here. And then by going there and doing whatever the action says I can do, then I get to also move troops from my garrison into the conflict. And eventually we'll play cards and maybe get some boosts to that. And that's kind of where that feel of Lords of Waterdeep comes in, because it's like, hey, I'm playing this card and look at that, I get 5 more power. It's got typical deck builder type of elements. Because this icon over here represents your ability to buy new cards from a market. So it's got like a Clank vibe to it in some ways there too. It's a hodgepodge of stuff. And the theme does kind of play nicely. I do like that they used, you can tell that the characters match the way that they look in the movie, but they're not frames from the movies. It's like an art filter put over them or whatever. Like, I appreciate that, so it still feels like a game, especially if you've never watched the movies. But man, there's so much going on in this game. I'm sorry, even though there's so much going on in this game, like, it's still not that inaccessible. It's really not a very, very, very complex game compared to some others. But if you like Clank, if you like Viticulture, if you like Lords of Waterdeep, like, this might be a good step up to go have some fun. And that is Dune Imperium, my number 4 favorite game at the moment. And now we're in top 3 territory. Top 3. This is my number 3 favorite game. Sorry for like the fuzzy icon. It's not that fantastic. But I love 4X games, 4X style games. This one is like the beast of them all, in my opinion. Not like overly complex from like a perspective of 4X that will take you forever. Like, this is not Twilight Imperium. I don't ever see myself enjoying that game. So that's like the ultimate side of the spectrum. This is leaning towards that side of the spectrum, and that is Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. What makes this game special is that it still kind of plays out like a Euro game. And I like that a lot. So it involves a good amount of resource management. It kind of invokes that feeling of exploiting the lands and exploring in combination with each other to do better and cooler things. So this is the main board for a 4-player game. Each player starts on their own continent with their own structures. It has really awesome components. It does take a little bit of work to put them together. And I did use drops of super glue so that they do stay together. But there are a lot of constructs in this game. So you've got a 3-tiered tower. Each player has 3 of these. Maybe these are called towers. And this is like their capital city. Whatever. You get 3 of these to per faction. Every faction has a flying construct and a boat construct, which holds miniatures in there as well. And that's how you can traverse across the waters. You're trying to control certain terrains. And if you draw resources from them based on the terrain type, you move up your certain tracks for those types of resources. There are a bunch of exploration tiles out there that you can explore, both water and on land. There's also, I have all the expansions. So there's an expansion that does include like a bird race. So there's a floating island as well. And you're doing all of this so that you can upgrade your units, you can upgrade your castle. Like, the better that you upgrade your capital, like this is the basic for everyone right now. But if you upgrade your capital city, suddenly all of your, in this case, it would be like the paladins, they all get an upgrade as well. You can, and it represents building like a cathedral, a tavern, a sea dock, the air spire. Like, you're building these things. And you're also unlocking even more fun abilities for all of your units that are on the board. You're trying, and so even though this is a 4X style game, the winner doesn't automatically get assumed by the person who achieves that X first. So 4X stands for explore, exterminate, exploit, and expand. Got that one wrong. So, for example, exploring is going around and picking up these exploration tokens. So you don't win the game just by finishing by having all the exploration tokens be picked up. Expanding, you can get all of your units out and built and onto the board. You don't immediately win the game just because you did that. Or exploiting is where you're trying to use the resources to build up your capitals. Again, you don't instantly win. So there is still victory points tied to this game. So obviously doing those things well is good for you. But you're managing, or even exterminate, you can, it's really, 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 really hard to do, which I appreciate, but you can go to anyone's faction's capital and have combat with it. And if you can destroy it completely, that player is eliminated from the game, and it does end the game, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win. It does guarantee that that person's out of the game. So if you see someone running up the track like this brown player is, you might want to kick down their front door. And if you do that, you can technically eliminate them from winning the game and still lose. Because another player has got different ways of getting victory points. So that's really cool and entertaining. And the last part I want to mention is in combat, everyone has the same hand of cards, although there's a variant that's being shipped from Kickstarters right now. But the main game is everyone has the same deck of cards. And in combat, you play a card. You can't just play any card you want. Some of these cards do have costs on them, so you've got to pay. For example, if I want to play this 2, I have to pay 4 of my resources of this green track. So I have to have the resources. A retreat card costs 2 red, but it will let you move all of your units to a capital city, and you lose 2 points. Like, you can do certain things to mitigate winning or losing combat, or just succumb to the loss. I mean, there's so many things that you can do just in the interplay between players of here. There's spells and upgrades. Like, there's so much going on here. But the experience is, again, memorable. I don't love this game at high player counts, but I do think it plays good at 3, which is really odd for a game like this. Usually you'd want to play 2 or 4, but even at 3, it's pretty cool because it's easy to get to this even if you're across from here. So anyways, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea is my favorite 4X style of board game that, and I think strictly because, I didn't even talk about this, but even strictly because you've got all the resource management and buildings and upgrades and spots of here, but it also even has the follow mechanic, which, oh man, there's so much goodness here. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I'm going to move on for my number 2 game, but Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea is an amazing design. Here we go, number 2 time, y'all. Do you recognize this piece? That's my number 2 game. Uses this funky little dude, and that is here Raiders of the North Sea. Now, I have a caveat. This is my number 2 game because of the expansions. However, I think that the base game is perfectly great in its own right, but for me, I love playing with all the extra elements they add to this game. But when I play with my oldest daughter, for example, we pretty much only play base game and we still have a great time. So in this game, it's got a little bit of deck building in there, and it's got a little bit of worker placement in there as well. There's another one of those hybrids. But man, what makes this game so fun and unique is on your turn, you always have one worker of a certain color, black, gray, or white. And on your turn, you have to play that. And so there are certain places here that are like you can only place a gray and a white. You can only place a gray and a white. Otherwise, you can play the black ones anywhere. So on your turn, you have to place it first, take the action of the location, and then you have to pull a worker off the board. And so let's imagine I went to the barracks, which lets me add one. I can pay the cost of a card in my hand and add it to my crew. But then I have to pull one of these other workers off the board and then take the action there. So maybe I pull from the town hall and I play a card from my hand for its ability, or I go to the gatehouse and I draw 2 cards. So like you always place, do an action, pull, do an action, or you pillage. You try going out there and pillage the areas. There's different costs and requirements. Like if you want to do the harbor, you have to have 3. What do they call these? There's supplies. Oh, I can't think of the name. Oh, I'm blanking out. Oh, I can't think of the name. You have these 3 resources, and you need to have a crew size of at least 2. If you do that, you take the worker that you had, which is most likely going to be a black one, and it stays here at this location. You get all of the resources that are here, and then you pick up your gray worker, and then you use that. So the game sort of decays the black units, and you're going to get more of these gray and white units into the game, so there's a nice ramp up there. You get victory points for what you pillage. Later in the game, some of these other locations, not only do the costs go up, but you have these 2 dice that you roll, which may give you extra points as well. So you can't see it here on this picture, but there's 2 rewards here. If your total strength is at least 1 value, you get this one. But if it can exceed this one, you get more points. And this particular one will let you roll 1 dice, so you can do that to help boost you up. There's all of these really interesting combos that you can pull with the cards. Like if you add them to your crew, you pay 1 less provision. That's what they're called, provisions, when raiding outposts. But if you just play them and get rid of them, you can use it to gain a provision and silver. So like there's so many things you can do in this game. But I really enjoy it. And the expansions, they do add layers to this onion, like other Jarls that you can get and defeat. There's other things that you can do with the resources. There's ways of temporarily boosting your strength by drinking some mead. There's tracks that you can go up. So as you add armor and strength to your units, you're getting victory points. As your units die and go to Valhalla, you're getting victory points. And as you remember your fallen units, man, this game is so cool, and it's one of my favorites. I barely ever will say no to playing a game of Raiders of the North Sea. All right, time for the number 1 game, my favorite game right now. I love this game, and hopefully you can recognize it from this component. Do you? My favorite game, my number 1 favorite game out of all 100 that I've talked about, every other game I've played since, The Pursuit of Happiness. Now, I want to remind yourselves, you should see it. Like, my game is a complete array of different styles of games. and some are designed better than others. I'm never going to say that this is the best designed game, but man, is this game fun. And again, this tells a story and leaves you with an impression and a memory every time you play it. This is the Euro game of life. This is a game that I can play with my kids and we can all do well and have a good time, so it's accessible to a lot of people. And man, is this really going to leave you inspired to change, maybe change something in your life when you're done playing it. In this game, you start off as a teen and you progress through adulthood until eventually old age. There's a stress track that's over here. And if you take, every time you start a round, you take on certain amounts of stress. But if you take on too much stress during your old age, you die. So technically speaking, you can be eliminated in this round when players can still have 2 more rounds after that. Although it's not rare, but it's definitely uncommon to get this far. So most people tend to die in this round here. And that's okay. So sometimes, like, again, going back to the name of the game, The Pursuit of Happiness, the name of this game is long-term happiness. That is what the victory track represents. Your victory points come in the form of long-term happiness. Sure, you can earn some short-term happiness, right? But the most, and if you have a pretty low stress life, you're going to be able to do more in your turn. But doing things like working overtime will give you a little bit extra money, I believe, but it'll cause you some more stress. Getting a temporary job can give you some money. Learning, studying can get you some knowledge, and these are the resources that you use in the game to spend for the things that you do. You can get a job. You can even get into a relationship. And these all, and this is so clever. This is so clever. Your workers are in the shape of an hourglass. And so when you're deciding what action to take, you're literally spending time. I know it's kind of hokey, whatever, but I'm spending time to develop my relationship, right? For example, or I'm spending time to go and study. How much time do I have left to spend during this time of my age? And you can do things like going out and participating in activities or getting items. You can go ahead and work in projects. You can get a job. You can get in a relationship with folks. And all these things require time, energy, and resources. Anyways, by the time it's done, you should have a pretty fun story to tell. And Pursuit of Happiness is my favorite game. I love this game so much. I do have not all, but some of the expansions. I don't recommend them, especially in your first time playing. But if you do want to add wrinkles to the strategy, they're out there for you. You can get you can get child traits, which kind of act like abilities. You can get things like community projects and stuff. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, I would highly recommend it. It's my #1 favorite game. And that's it. That's my top 100, The Pursuit of Happiness. I'll just run through them all over. I'm not going to run through them one by one, but you can see the top 10 here. Pursuit of Happiness is reigning supreme over Raiders of the North Sea, Heroes of Legendary Sea, Dune Imperium, Cosmic Encounter, Life of the Amazonia, Distilled, Viticulture, Arc Nova, and Horizons. Really enjoyed putting this all together for y'all. And like I said before, I really hope my goal with this series of videos isn't to just talk about things that I love, but hopefully talk about something that you haven't heard of or something you've forgotten about and get you inspired to go try those things out and play them for yourselves and hopefully find some new favorites for yourself. So with that, we're going to conclude my series of the top 100. Thanks for going along with the journey with me. And if you've got anything you want to let me know, please, I'd love to hear it. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you sometime in the future. Bye.